Harriet Tubman, originally named Arminita Harriet Ross, was born in Dorchester County, Maryland in 1820 to her enslaved parents. She was a former slave who escaped and fled to Philadelphia in 1849 to lead a heroic struggle for her people. She was often referred to as the Moses of her people, after the prophet Moses in the Bible who led the Israelites to freedom.
At age 6, Harriet was considered old enough to work, as long as it wasn't in the fields. She started off weaving and then was responsible for checking the muskrat traps. While doing so, she became sick and her owners saw her as incompetent. This resulted in her being sold and becoming a housekeeper. However, her stay was not long, as she was sold again after eating one of the woman's sugar cubes. At age 12, she was no longer seen as a child and was able to work in the fields under a man named Barrett. Surprisingly, Harriet enjoyed the hard labor over household chores. On one occasion, a blow to the head seriously injured Harriet. She attempted to help a fugitive slave obtain freedom by intercepting and getting in the overseer's way.
The weight broke my skull and cut a piece of that shawl clean off and drove it into my head. They carried me to the house, all bleeding and fainting. I had no bed, no place to lie down at all, and they laid me on the seat of the loom, and I stayed there all day and the next.
After this incident, Harriet was seen as damaged, and many owners did not want her.
While slaves were trying to escape, they would sing, "Swing low, sweet chariot," as a signal. They would be smuggled that night until they reached the north, or Canada, where freedom was achieved. Songs helped slaves communicate. They were passed from one group to another, and with the songs came the code. Many songs had secret messages about going to the north to attain freedom.
In 1849, Harriet escaped slavery and was given a piece of paper by a white abolitionist with 2 names on it. The abolitionist gave her directions to safe houses on her path to freedom. In order to cross the Mason-Dixon line successfully, she went through many hardships, like traveling in the wagon covered with sacks and hitching rides with passerby strangers.
Route to freedom. Come through my doors, and you will see a place where Negroes once did flee. Feel the excitement inside of me. Pursuers search for slaves wanting to be free. Comes a loud pound at my door, quickly hide beneath my floor. Today I am proud to say I was a car on the Underground Railway.
The Underground Railroad was an accumulation of secret routes and safe houses used by African American slaves in the United States in efforts to escape to the north. In September of 1850, Harriet was made an official conductor of the Underground Railroad. This meant that she knew all the routes that led to the free territory, and also meant that she took an oath of silence to keep the Underground Railroad a secret.
I was the conductor of the Underground Railroad for 8 years, and I can say what most conductors can't. I never ran my train off the track, and I never lost a passenger.
Harriet Tubman used a gun to threaten her passengers if they wanted to turn back, because she knew that if anyone turned back, it would put her and the other slaves in danger of discovery, capture, or death. People don't think of her as being vicious and violent. They portray her as a savior and a prophet. This is especially difficult since most people learn about Harriet Tubman as a child and have a stereotypical image of her.
Slaveholders placed a bounty for her capture. If she was captured, they were offered a $40,000 reward from the South. At one time in her life, she overheard 2 men saying that the slave they were looking for was illiterate, so she picked up a book and pretended to read. Harriet got lucky that the men didn't notice that the book she was pretending to read was upside down.
During the Civil War, Harriet served as a spy, nurse, and soldier. Under the command of General Montgomery, she led the first ever woman-armed military raid expedition with the African-American 2nd South Carolina Regiment. This resulted in over 700 slaves being freed. The freeing of these slaves earned her the nickname General Tubman. As one of the country's most courageous abolitionists, she earned the respect of many leaders, including Frederick Douglass. After the war, she received a pension as the widow of Union veteran Nelson Davis, who had served as a private in the 8 United States Colored Infantry. Although she received this pension, she later petitioned to Congress for benefits for her own service during the Civil War.
There was one of 2 things I had a right to, liberty or death. If I could not have one, I would take the other, for no man should take me alive. I should fight for liberty as long as my strength lasted.
All of her life, Harriet expected to die while transporting people on the railroad, but in fact, she died of pneumonia due to old age. Before she died, she told her family, "I go to prepare a place for you." Harriet Tubman was a warrior, leader, fighter, and commander. Her lifetime of contributions have played a key role in the abolishment of slavery and women's rights.